Okay, so this is going to be House of the Dragon episode 10, season finale review here on Rants. Overall, it didn't disappoint. It really didn't disappoint. We got to see our first big dragon fight. It was ominous. It was cool. I loved it. Now, I've made no bones about this as much as I love this show. There's certain parts and aspects of it that have kind of worn on me over the season. One is not quite understanding why there's got to be so many birth scenes in here. That kind of took me out of a lot of it. I got to the point where I just kind of skip over it because I no longer care. It's like, oh crap, another one of these. So that kind of got old to me. And I'll tell you another thing. As far as Game of Thrones is concerned, Game of Thrones always felt epic. No matter in the good days and in the bad seasons of it, it always felt epic. It always felt like there was a larger picture involved. The one thing about House of the Dragon that I love and I hate at the same time is, especially this season, is it feels very small scale. And all of it feels very unavoidable, I guess you could say. Simply because it's just a bunch of mishaps, mishandlings. No one on both sides feels competent. Maybe Otto, and I know a lot of people hate Otto Hightower, but he seems to be kind of ahead of the game. He seems to be kind of always thinking two steps ahead. He is the Tywin Lannister of this series. I think he's a generic version of Tywin Lannister, but I think he is, at least compared to the others, he is two steps ahead. So, like I said, I've enjoyed certain aspects of it. I've hated certain aspects of it. I felt like it was very low key. I felt like there was a little bit too much family drama that could have been avoided. But overall, I did enjoy this series greatly. I love a lot of these new characters that we got. Not really a big fan of the time jumps and changing of actors and actresses. I thought that maybe could have been done differently. That could have been done season by season, but not necessarily, 3 episodes this way and then 3 episodes that way. Totally get they've got a time frame that they've got to get into, but it's almost kind of like the Rings of Power. You're taking large scale time jumps and then you're just kind of mashing it all together all at once. And right when I get accustomed to one thing, they bring about something new. I feel like it maybe could have been expanded a little bit more. I felt like, when it comes to the fights between the characters, I felt like they could have expanded that for a season or two. More than, already getting into the Dance of Dragons after season 1. But that's just my personal opinion on it. I understand a lot of people, they want to go ahead and get into the meat of it. Totally get it. I'm always the type of person that enjoys the foundation of it and setting that foundation before I get into the meat of things. I don't mind being patient with the show that I love. And I love this show. But I'll go ahead and get into this. This episode, last episode was very confusing to me. And I'll tell you a character that I've never been a fan of throughout this show is Rhaenys Valerian. I felt like she had this entitlement, this belief that if she was a male that she would have been king or queen, and she might have. Viserys was, given that opportunity because of that one reason. But there was nothing about that show that made me really feel like, oh man, the Seven Kingdoms really, really failed themselves by not making her queen. She seems like a terrible person. She seems like a terrible character. She seems like she's got always kind of flip-floppy intentions and ways. And, I still to this day can't get over her wanting to give her 12-year-old daughter to the 50-something-year-old king. That was a very weird scene. One of the worst scenes, I think, in television history, with them walking in the garden together. That was just eerie, weird, only something you would expect from George R.R. Martin. But as far as Rhaenys is concerned, when it comes to this episode, she had a chance to kill Aegon and end the war right there. Should have done it, could have done it. No idea why she did. I thought the answer that they gave was, Allison standing in the way and she as a mother felt something. I don't really quite understand the directors of this, the whole first season. I mean, the whole premise of it on the lead up to it was they wanted to have a lot of childbirth scenes simply because of what had happened with Roe v. Wade. And they wanted to prove a point of some way. And I felt like they did a terrible job of proving that point. But at the same time, I kind of felt like they kind of did this weird thing between abortion and then motherhood and the importance of it and all of these these strange concepts that from a political standpoint actually seem to kind of contradict in a lot of ways. But I won't get into the political aspect of it. But I will say I feel like the directors maybe had a way that they wanted to present something and that it never fully achieved its goal when it come to that. In that one aspect, I felt like it failed miserably. But as far as Rhaenys is concerned, she, like I said, she had a chance to kill Aegon. She chose not to. Then she goes, warns Rhaenyra, and says, Valerians are out of it. We're staying out of it. And then as soon as Corlys comes in the picture, and he's like, I want no part of Rhaenyra. She is responsible for my son's death. Then you got Rhaenys saying, oh, well, we actually have to, side with them. And then Corlys sides with her. And I'm like, so which is it? Which is it, Rhaenys? Like, do you want to stay out of this war? If that was your intention to begin with, then why didn't you just kill Aegon in the war to begin with and then be seen as a hero that gave Rhaenyra the throne? I don't really understand the premise of that. I feel like it all kind of contradicts each other and it's just a real big flip-flop. And I've already touched on, like I said, the scene, the childbirth scenes. I mean, wow, how many childbirth scenes do we need in one show? The right answer to that is zero. Always is zero. Nobody wants to see that. And we got to see the most gruesome childbirthing scenes I've ever seen in my life in any show. Why any show would want to present this is beyond me. Like I said, they were trying to make a point, but then they failed in their point, but then they tried to just like hunker down on it. And I'm like, if you're male or female, whatever your political opinions are, no one probably wanted to see that. I don't know a single person that did. I thought it made this show a little bit worse. That was one of my biggest pet peeves when it come to this show, was they spent way, way, way too much time on that as a season, and even in this episode as well. I felt like there was a lot of time. There was a lot of things that I wanted to see in episode 10, and we took about 10 or 15 minutes with Rhaenyra having, giving birth. That kind of bothered me a little bit, but that's been kind of a pet peeve of mine all the way through. Now, as far as the Hightowers are concerned, Otto comes to Rhaenyra, and I felt like Rhaenyra kind of does this like stupid thing of, you got Daemon meeting Otto again in the exact same place that he met him last time, and then you've got Rhaenyra that has to fly on her dragon to, I don't know, scare Otto, which I feel like this has already been done before. Really didn't have an effect upon anything. And I kind of felt like, what? And look, I'm not taking a side when it comes to green or blacks when it comes to this. But I thought overall what he was asking or delivering was a pretty reasonable offer. And especially when you are in, you don't have the power base that you could have to win this war. And then you've got small children, and you know that yes, you have dragons, but at the same time, for the dragons to work, you have to put your own children on there. I kind of feel like you're at a disadvantage, at that moment. And I kind of felt like her just kind of him hauling around or trying to, I don't know, be threatening or queen-like to Otto was just really a waste of time. He knows she's not going to kill him. And as far as Daemon is concerned in that scene, Daemon kind of tries to take a back seat, but at the same time, you can tell he's itching for war. And it doesn't really matter what Rhaenyra thinks at this point. And I think to a certain extent, she understands that as well. I mean, he's really, in a lot of ways, Daemon is showing his true colors. Daemon is showing why maybe Viserys was weary and the whole realm was weary of him being king, simply because he is very prone to want to start a war, to fight, to kill. That's what he does best. And I felt like Rhaenyra did a very good job, though, of kind of setting the standard and being like, hey, we do this, they attack first, and then we do something. But until then, we hold our ground. We don't be the ones that start a war. I thought that was very smart of her, and I thought that was very queen-like. And I'm not exactly the biggest fan of Rhaenyra, but I thought in that one example she did a really good job. And I thought Daemon, we got to see for the first time why Viserys and the realm was weary of him, because he's too gung-ho when it comes to things. But as far as the realm is concerned, what is the point of fealty? What is the point of fealty when at the end of the day it means literally nothing to these houses? They will only go whichever one serves them the best. They're not loyal to Rhaenyra, and they're not loyal to Aegon. They're just, I don't know, it just kind of feels like their oaths are meaningless at this point. I felt like there was an oath. Even Daemon gives the oath to the Queen's Guard and, gives them this choice of quick death or, swearing fealty. Well, fealty means nothing. And when you had that Kingsguard member show up, like, how did you not know that was a trick? Like, just because he brought the crown, like, that's it? I thought that was kind of dumb that they accepted him into the fold so quickly. But I just feel like that. I just feel like fealty has just been a complete and total waste of time. And any scene that involves it is a complete and total waste of time. Now, as far as Rhaenyra is concerned, she made the biggest blunder by sending her children out of all people, to go get assistance from the Starks and from the Baratheons. Why would you ever send boys to do this mission? Like, your life and their life depends upon it, and you're going to trust your young children to do this. I mean, I feel like that's incredibly stupid. It would have made more sense to have sent Daemon there, because he's just one guy that has the charisma and really can put the fear of God in somebody. He would have been the best person to have sent to begin with. Then you wouldn't have had this problem. You wouldn't have had what ended up happening at the end ever happening, because the situation would have probably been taken care of. Boris Baratheon, even though Aemon had a better offer, and the Greens had a better offer, you send Daemon there with his dragons, and I really believe Boris Baratheon probably changes his mind on that. That's just my personal opinion on that. So I felt like that was a real big miscalculation on her part. But I feel like she's done a lot of bad miscalculation. I felt like Rhaenys did a lot of bad miscalculations by not taking out Aegon. So far, the Blacks have shown that they're probably pretty incompetent when it comes to that. And I thought the dragon fight, was going to be more tragic in my eyes, but I could not get over that fact. I really couldn't. That at the end of the day, they sent children to do what grown-ups should have done, and it just meant like they did exactly that. They behaved as children. And I just feel like, you're starting a war because you're trying to put children at the forefront, and then they make mistakes that cause grown-ups and soldiers to have to die in it, which is crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. That's why children don't need to be in war. But as far as the dragon fight is concerned, dragon fight was awesome. I thought it was incredibly ominous when it was in the thunder and the lightning. I thought this between Lucerys and Aemon, I thought they maybe made a mistake in this show of making Lucerys look such like a young child and Aemon looking so much older. I don't know if that was that way in Fire and Blood, but I will say this: they should have made them a little bit closer together, because it looked like a man trying to hurt a little boy, which seems odd in itself. But it also kind of, and this is another part that kind of bothers me, is George R. R. Martin writes one thing. He writes in the book that, Aemon kills Lucerys intentionally, and that then he goes and gets his eyes. But in the show, it's the polar opposite. Aemon loses control of his dragon because Lucerys' dragon breathes fire at it, and then, what happens. The dragon does it on its own without his rider wanting it, which, I don't know, kind of made me feel a little bit something for Aemon when I really should have hated him in that moment. But it was only because I felt like, wow, they made him look weak. They made him, they did the one thing that this show struggles with, and that is the children. The children make this show struggle, just like it did on Vikings. If you ever watched that show, how the children make those shows weak, because children do children thing. And that, instead of feeling like an act of war or an act of revenge, felt more like children doing something stupid and then something bad goes wrong. And I felt like that took away from that moment when it really shouldn't be. Because I think we all got the idea towards the end that Aemon didn't intend to kill Lucerys. It was his dragon that killed him. And now we're going to have all these different posts for the next year on House of the Dragon Facebook pages and whatnot about how terrible Lucerys is. Or I just think he looked really weak in that moment. And I don't really think, if you want to make him into a villain, make him into a villain. But don't make him weak. Don't make him weak. This is somebody that is the green side version of Daemon. And I felt like they did exactly that. They made him look weak in that moment. But anyways, guys, that is my take on episode 10. I thought overall this was a pretty good episode. Like I said, it did have its faults and it did have its mistakes. But overall, I think it was a solid season finale to a solid season. A lot of people want to compare the show to Rings of Power, but there's no comparison. This show's just better. Just better. Actors, actresses, story, everything's better in this show compared to the Rings of Power. I don't even see the comparisons or why people want to do that. They're made for two separate audiences. And I think you see that in a lot of the ratings, that, vice versa. It doesn't, the viewers of one show don't match up with the viewers of another show. But anyways, that's another video for another time. But overall, I'll give this episode probably about a 6 out of 10. 6 or 7 out of 10. But anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. Did you love it? Did you hate it? As always, thank y'all so much for watching, and y'all take care.